Hello, my friends. This is Davis here for the M3 podcast, Multimedia Madness, talking about movies, games, TV shows, anything like that, anime, stuff like everything like that. Now that the Loki finale came out, and there was the Black Widow movie that came out, those were two big things that were really exciting for me. And my guest is back here, Neil Chace. In the previous episode I had with him, we talked about Falcon and the Winter Soldier and chit chatted a little bit about kind of the film scene here in Edmonton. And as I previously stated on that episode, and I'll reiterate it here as well, he is a Edmonton known filmmaker, writer, actor, and everything like that. He is a lot more experienced than I am, but he is always gracious talking about anything in that realm, especially Marvel related. And I think we have really good conversation wise going into that. But before we get into that, we're just gonna go into a little bit more about who he is, just a little quicker, a little bit faster one than last time probably, but talk about some of the stuff that he's done and just to introduce a little bit of the audience.
Yeah, hi everybody. Like David says, my name is Neil Chace. I'm an Edmonton-based writer, actor, novelist. These days, gosh, I've got a couple of different things on the run. Working on a brand new novel right now. It's a horror novel adaptation of one of my screenplays called Dead Strays. That's going really well. We just finished recording an audiobook recently, myself and David Haycock and Lindsay Christopher, two also Edmonton-based filmmakers here in town. And I've just got a couple of different things in the irons in the fire, and things are looking great.
So,
Yeah,
some iron dogs, shall we say?
that's right.
But by the way, on that, I wish I actually got into a little bit more, but I am still listening to that book there, but it is really good. Like I really like your narration skills, by the way. Just putting that out there, and the producer, like the actual sound effects and everything on that are really well done. Of like the horses and like the whisper in the wind and everything, without going into spoilers of the book, but just like the little bit of details of just like how you kind of described like the total emptiness of a town, or the injury of a guy or anything like that. Like it's really good. As I think I might actually get the hard copy and actually read it myself as well, now that I've listened to. I think I'm on chapter 12, 10, 12. Without going into spoilers, I'm gonna I'm at the around the part with the priest, where they find the priest.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So
That's, yeah, thank you so much. It was so much fun putting all that together, and I have to give credit to David Haycock for that. He directed it and produced the audiobook. And when we first discussed it, it was going to be just a straight up, I will just narrate it, and Dave will do his magic in cleaning up the audio, taking out all my little stutters and swallows and all the sounds that you don't want in an audiobook. But then the more we talked about it, the more sort of excited we got about it, and we said, what if we throw in some sound effects? And then Dave took it a step further and said, well, I could write some music for it too. So all the music that's in that audiobook is actually original and written and performed by David as well.
wow.
So, we've actually have a soundtrack album
Yeah.
that accompanies the book. So if anybody ever wants a copy of it, just reach out to me at neilchasefilm.com, and I can get you a copy of that, no charge.
Yeah.
We just want to get it out there and sort of share it with the world.
Awesome. Yeah. Well, any people that are listening, this is still a very small audience, but I have a few people that are always engaged, that are decently engaged. I get a few people here and there, and I'm actually occasionally jumping on another podcast as well. It's called The Loneliest City, and so that group, I have a few people that might be interested in something like that as well. And I've talked about
Awesome.
your book with them as well.
Well, thank you.
Yeah. And then you want to go into a little bit of the Boneyard Racers, the movie.
Yeah, so we've got Boneyard Racers is still on the festival circuit right now. It's a short film that we did. Oh gosh, would have been, I guess now we finished it last October, I want to say. And since about December, that's when it was finally completed in post. And then we put it out on the festival circuit, and it's been doing just unbelievably well. I think the film's won something like, gosh, I don't even know now, 12 or so awards, something like this. And there's a couple more that we're still waiting to hear from. So things are looking really great. But in the meantime, we are putting together a Edmonton premiere, which will be September 24th. Let me just bring up the details here. I want to make sure I get everything right. So it'll be September 24th at LB's Pub in St. Albert at 7:30 p.m. Tickets are $20, but it's not just the film. This is the great thing about it. We'd actually have Punch Drunk Cabaret performing. They did the music in the movie, but they're going to put on a live show.
Nice.
So it'll be wonderful. And there also will be classic cars in the parking lot. That we're going to kind of be doing this great little car show as well. It'll just be a fantastic time. We're telling people, dress up if you want, dress up to the nines or come in masquerade. A lot of people are going to come in costume because it's sort of, to sort of meet the mood that we're trying to convey, and it's going to be kind of, Halloween's around the corner, so why not take advantage?
Yeah, I saw your post on that, and I don't know if I was the only one that commented it, or if it's just, or if I'm the only one that has a ticket yet. I don't know, but I saw I posted and was like, yeah, might as well. I still have to book it off from work, but I still have plenty of time to do that. But
actually, tickets are selling really fast. It's amazing. It's only mid-July right now. We have basically 2 months to go, and I think we've already sold half of the tickets.
Yeah, I'm definitely excited to go. That's gonna be like, I'm saying to people like, hey, I'm being invited to a movie premiere. Like, it's no like Hollywood lights in it, but it's still gonna be a fun event, and with people that I don't know, and some people I might know here and there, other than yourself, obviously, but I might recognize a few people. I recognized Jarvis, what's his name, from Hot Shot Films. Yeah, he commented on that, and so I recognize a couple names that you have on your Neil Chace Films, like your Facebook page or whatever. But like it will be a good, I think, partially as well, like a little bit of a networking event too, right? For people like myself that are still trying to get into the scene, right?
Yeah, it'll be a great time. I think there will be quite a few people from sort of the Edmonton area film scene there, as well as the music scene, and I think it's just going to be a great time. So if people want to come out, just say hi, meet and greet everybody. I think it would be fantastic.
Yeah,
it's a fantastic opportunity for anybody who's up and coming, but it's also just have some fun.
Yeah, exactly. I still haven't decided what I'm gonna do, if I want to do a Halloween costume or trying to dress a little bit nicer. I don't know. I'll decide probably like night before.
You could always do a combination of both.
Yeah, exactly.
There you go.
And yeah, it's in St. Albert, so it's not even that far from where I live either.
Awesome.
Nice. So what is more on your mind? I just rewatched the final of Loki just to try to get it into my mind. But
we can start there.
Let's
for sure.
start
with Loki.
Okay, yeah. Awesome. I'm just gonna ask a general overall question first, and then we can go into a little bit details. In comparison to WandaVision and Falcon and Winter Soldier, where does this kind of rank for you for what you in comparison to the three? The show as a whole.
I think I enjoyed this one the most so far. I'll be honest. I think part of the reason is because I literally didn't know what to expect.
Mm-hmm.
It was such a really cool, great premise. The whole time travel thing and jumping all over the place. And you just really didn't know what the heck was going on. And it was a great mystery that kept unraveling throughout the whole episode. I think the ending, at least for me being a comic fan, it led to where I thought it was going to lead,
mm-hmm.
With the reveal of the main bad guy. But I think they did it really well. So, and I love the fact that unlike the other two episodes, which really sort of exist as standalones,
yeah.
they don't really need any more. It would be great if they make more, but you sort of get the impression that like if they were to leave it as is, that would be okay. With Loki, they definitely leave the door wide open. It says right at the end, Loki will return in season 2.
Season
Which is,
2. Yeah,
all right.
it's the only one of the 3 that actually has a confirmed season 2. Exactly.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right.
Yeah. Exactly, like WandaVision was definitely set up to be open ended towards Doctor Strange 2, like because with the whole astral projection and everything like that at the end of that. Falcon and the Winter Soldier was going on to maybe a Captain America 4 slash like Dark Avengers is the theory that's coming up with that with like the whatever his name was, the Captain America or whatever.
U.S. agent.
U.S. agent, thank you. Because there's him, and then there's also the what's his name from The Boys. Jensen Ackles is playing a version of another like dark version of Captain America in The Boys as well. So there's another.
That's right.
Yeah, there's another character as well like that.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, I agree. Before all the shows came out, I was more excited for Falcon and the Winter Soldier. Just because I like the dynamic between Bucky and Sam and everything, especially in Civil War. Like they have that little like the little jokiness of like, can you move your seat up? No, type thing like that. Yeah,
it's great. Yeah,
but
agreed.
But yeah, the idea between like Loki, he had the growth throughout the movies and everything, and then they lost that growth because of where it starts off the end of the first Avengers movie, and now he gets a new type of growth as a character.
Yeah, it's interesting how they did that. I was wondering going into the show how they were going to accomplish that, because it was a pretty hard reset for the character, and it's interesting that the series could have gone in a slightly different direction, where he could have still been the villain, really, that he was at the end of that first Avengers movie, because it took him quite a while to become that sort of selfless, heroic character, right? Where he ultimately dies at the hands of Thanos. He dies a hero, really, right? And it took a while to get there. And so in the TV show now, they kind of truncate that journey, and they get him there a lot faster. But I like the way they did it. I thought it was well done.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Because like, and the only thing is that it's almost like, because of how quick it is, I know they have it as being like time moves differently in the TVA and all this stuff, but it seemed, the only thing, it seemed a little, maybe because it's only 6 episodes, but like the relationship between him and Sylvie seemed a little too like quick, I think, though.
Yes.
Yeah.
I agree.
Yeah, because
I agree.
Because it was definitely like, okay, we don't know who you are. Then they meet, they realize that okay, she is a Loki. They find out that it's a variant Loki, and that it's a woman, and then hate, then kind of fight and anger, and then they have like a moment on the one planet that's getting destroyed, and then it's just like they become not necessarily in love, but like pushed more than just enemies. Like yeah.
Yeah, I mean, there's definitely that the romantic overtones, and you're right. It happens really across one episode. So over the course of a single episode, they go from being two enemies who want to kill each other to I guess they're falling in love. So you're right. It does feel rushed, and I think that is because it's only a 6-episode arc. If it had even 10 episodes to work with, they could have stretched that a little bit out and really dove into that whole character development and relationship development a little bit more, where I think it would have felt a little more organic, a little more natural than just like, okay, we need them to be here in this headspace, right?
Yeah.
So
I did really like what was Morbius? Yeah, Owen Wilson's character. He was Mobius. Yeah, he was definitely a good little like main like secondary character. Like it's hard to. He was definitely a good focus of character. I liked his little like comedic attitude towards like Loki's like, he knows he's just bullshitting, keep on bullshitting around the beginning, especially. It takes him a long time to kind of get to, because he's dealt with Loki's throughout however many different versions of Loki, so he knows how he is. But then, like for some reason, this whatever, not 616, but six. I think the MCU is 655 or something like that. This version of Loki is like slightly different, not a complete asshole.
Right, right. That's it. That's it. Yeah. I like their relationship. Yeah, I thought it was well done. Owen Wilson played a great character. I thought a lot of the characters were done really well throughout this series. I liked Sylvie. I liked this alternate Loki that they presented, and then once they go into the void, those other alternate Lokis, that was a fantastic scene. That I think that's my favorite part of the whole show, was all the different Lokis and seeing them all interacting with each other and how they're all like kind of rotten at heart, and all still trying to stab each other in the back and outdo each other.
Literally.
Literally. Yeah.
Yeah.
I thought that was great.
Yeah, out of the variant Lokis, other than Loki and Sylvie, who's your favorite variant Loki?
Oh, classic Loki. Yeah, he was so great. I mean, it was literally like watching the comics from when I was a kid come to life, right? Because that's exactly how he's shown in the comics. And I love this. I love this sort of kick that they're on now in Marvel for the TV shows. It seems like showing the various characters in their classic costumes, like they did it in WandaVision as well, with Vision and Wanda, right?
Yeah.
So it's kind of neat how they're sort of paying homage to their roots.
Yeah,
right?
it's still like a like comedic way, because like no one would dress like that in like real life, quote unquote. But
That's right.
But they have that, yeah, especially how they did it in WandaVision, how he's dressed as a Mexican wrestler, like.
That's right.
Yeah, that was but yeah, they didn't do. No, yeah, it wasn't in Falcon the Winter Soldier, or
Not yet.
no.
Not yet. Maybe it's coming. Who knows, right?
Yeah, well, I guess in the first Avengers movie, his costume is pretty close to what the like original one, without like the scales, but it's similar.
Are you talking about Falcon or
No, or Captain America in the first Avengers movie.
Yeah, Captain America is actually pretty close because they even did the scales for the last for Endgame.
Yeah.
Falcon would be a different story. Falcon, he's when he first appeared, he'd have like kind of this disco outfit, with the big V, open chest, and the puffed up collar and all this stuff. It'd be quite the costume, I think.
I don't think. Well, same thing with Hawkeye too. Hawkeye is completely washed out. Like they're not gonna have the big arrows on his head with an H and
the purple. All the purple.
They do. Yeah, they do a good job of having. At least they add a little bit of purple. Like they have like this scent, like the accent colors or whatever. But yeah, definitely not. But yeah, it's. At least they're playing homage to it with Falcon, with Loki, and
well, they did it well. They did it well in Loki in the fact that it fits in this idea of like, well, it's infinite universes, right? So there's infinite variations. So why not have this one who's wearing this outrageous costume that you would find in children's comic books?
Yeah,
right.
Exactly.
So it makes sense.
It's just it's like hell. We have an alligator. Like why is it any different? Exactly. Or I actually really liked, even though it was a really small part, I liked like Viking-esque Loki, the one that had almost like a Thor's hammer, like a hammer, but the black,
that's right.
the black guy. He had a small role, but it was just like it was almost like a fusion between Loki and Thor, like because he had like the attitude of Loki, but like the build and look of Thor.
Yep. He was cool. Like I liked all three or all four, I guess. I mean, Alligator Loki, you have to count him as one as well. But I liked Kid Thor. And the reason I like Kid Thor is because I actually, I'm a fan of the Thor comics, and there was a point in the comics where Loki actually dies. He sacrifices himself to save Asgard, and then when he does so, he's actually reincarnated and he's brought back as a kid. Everybody else is full grown, and now you've got Loki, and he sort of gets a second chance. And it's a wonderful story arc that they do in the Thor comics, where this kid, he's treated by everyone as still being this evil character who tried to have them all killed, because they almost died because of him. And it's only through Thor's intervention, who's now literally his big brother, that he still gets to sort of stick around and sort of get a chance to redeem himself. It's kind of a bittersweet story. There's some comedy, there's some tragedy, because it doesn't quite end up, the way that poor kid Loki wants it to. And I just love the fact that they brought that character into this universe. And to be honest, I hope they bring more of these variants back, because I think they're great.
Well, considering there is going to be a season 2, I can guaranteed a season 2 for sure. And I know, yeah, there's potentially going to be other Lady Lokis as well, because who is it? It's Loki's mind inside of Lady Sif's body is the original Lady Loki.
That's right.
Yeah,
that's right.
See, I may not have grown up reading the comics like you, but I know enough of YouTube videos and enough research to know a little bit about it.
There you go. Well, what's cool is, I think what's awesome about these shows and these movies is if you watch them and if you enjoy them, it'll make you want to read the comics. So then you will go back and start digging up all those comics that where these characters appear for the first time, really, and then you can sort of see their progression, because there's some wonderful, wonderful storytelling in the comic book. I think people should check it out.
Yeah, about a month ago, I went to a comic book store on 97th Street, and I just went just curiosity, kind of looking through it, whatever. And I asked the guys that were working there, that were elder gentlemen, probably in their mid-50s or something like that. And I asked, I was like, now that the MCU is so big and the Marvel and everything like that, how have popularity people coming in to try to get those older books? And they were like, yeah, we had to reorder reprints of the older versions from the 60s and 70s because of the first appearances, and for that reason. And so that's helping bring nerdom into such mainstream nowadays, right? It's like same thing with anime. It used to be hated on back in the early 2000s, 90s, 2000s. Oh, you watch anime? Oh, you read comic books? You're such a nerd. But now it's such the big thing of the culture.
Yeah, it's very much embraced. I think one of the things that's helped, especially on the comic book side, is how you don't actually need to go pick up physical copies anymore. Now you can literally download them on the internet. You've got these CBRs, which are the comic book files, and you can order those from the comic distributors, just the same as you can order the hardcover, the actual physical copies. Heck, you can even get them from your library. You can download it that way. There you go,
right there.
So it's on your phone, it's on your tablet. You don't even need to actually have a physical copy, and now you can have an entire library on your personal device. So I think it's fantastic. It's opened up so many people to comic books that maybe normally wouldn't have, or maybe they're embarrassed to go into a comic book store because it's like, oh, I don't want to look like a nerd. I'm too old for this. Well, now you sort of have an escape, right?
Yeah, exactly. it's such a I love how the world has opened up to it so much now, because even in my day, it wasn't as bad compared to in the 80s, but still it was still that area when I was a kid in the early 2000s, right, of being of that idea. But yeah, I love how much more accepted it is nowadays. I was gonna say, what was what I want to ask you, out of your kind of writer knowledge, what was something that from the show was something character wise or plot wise or something to you that kind of, and out of any episode, that kind of didn't really make sense or didn't really fit with the narrative or was too pushed? Or is there anything that kind of that sticks out?
Let me think.
Anything?
I thought it was overall fairly well written. I enjoyed the way they did it. Gosh, I can't really punch too many plot holes in it that I can think of off the top of my head. With the other ones, there were certainly things that bothered me, and I'm sure we'll get into that, especially when we start getting to Black Widow. But as far as Loki went, I thought it was a pretty tightly, written product. They stayed fairly true to the character, I thought, regardless of which version or iteration of him. I think that was great. he was maybe a little too sensitive at times. I thought, and again, that's probably more just because of the 6 episode arc rather than it lasting longer.
Yeah.
Just he seemed so much more emotional than he was. And again, this is coming from the end of Avengers as opposed to
Infinity War.
If it
Yes.
was that Thor, then I would understand why he was getting so much more emotional.
Loki.
But yeah, Loki. But because it's this Thor or sorry, Loki, but
Yeah.
because it's this, but because it's the earlier Loki, it's almost like that guy wasn't in that headspace yet.
Mhm.
So for him to get to that point where he's kind of breaking down, it seemed almost like it was too rushed.
Yeah.
Um,
Well, on the only thing on that though that I say in episode one, Tom Hiddleston's performance of seeing like his family's death coming up after he gets captured into Thor Ragnarok. His acting like was
phenomenal.
like yeah,
Yeah,
like Tom
absolutely.
Hiddleston like even though they're the Thor movies, Tom Hiddleston, I think that's why people really were more excited for the Loki movie show compared to the other two because
Mhm.
like people really like Tom Hiddleston as an actor. He portrays his character really well. He's a strong. If I remember correctly, I think he went to like theater and like actual like theater
Mhm.
actor originally. So he has
Yep.
yeah. I don't know if that's the same about Hemsworth, but like and that could be saying for the character or to the actor. I'm not sure, but like the just the ability, he has just a stronger performance.
As I understand it, Chris Hemsworth comes. Well, he's Australian, first of all. So he comes from I believe, a soap opera background,
Mhm.
where he did like soap opera work in Australia before he sort of hit it big as an American actor.
Right.
Whereas Tom Hiddleston, you're right, comes from a theater background in England. So they're two very different paths,
Hmm.
and yet they both. I think they were both perfectly cast
Oh,
for their
100%.
respective characters
Oh yeah, 100%.
because it's almost like Chris Hemsworth channeled that playfulness and the macho bravado of that Australian surfer dude, right?
Especially in the first Thor.
Yeah, exactly. Whereas Tom Hiddleston brought that sensibility and that refined side of things from that English theater background, right?
That's a good way of putting
Yeah,
it. Yeah.
right? And it really helps the character because that character's sort of the scheming, conniving. There's always something behind the scenes and behind the curtain, right?
Hmm.
And I think that background really lends itself well to portraying that kind of a character. So yeah, and I mean he's a phenomenal actor. They both are.
Hmm.
But I was very excited when I heard the Loki show was coming because I'm a huge fan of his. Like he's in that one episode. You're right. That first episode, it's like you might as well just give him the Emmy right now,
Yeah.
because that just blew me away.
Yeah.
You know.
Well, yeah, 100%. I see until the Thor movies and like all the MCU started. Like I said, I never really knew much about it. I watched a bit of the cartoons as a kid and stuff like that, so I was never really
Yeah.
much of a Loki fan. I'm a Spider-Man through and through. Spider-Man is my superhero, but
Yeah.
I know more Loki from the traditional Norse mythology, right? So
Mhm.
this version of Loki when it Thor the first movie came out, I was like, okay, this is different to what I know of because he's
Yeah.
more like evil-ish in the original mythology. So I'm like, okay,
Right.
but and of course it's Marvel. They add a little bit of twist to it, but like this is yeah, I agree. Tom Hiddleston is definitely perfect for this role for that like the higher end like I'm better than you personality that you
Yeah.
get with that that realm of things.
Well, he's definitely got that superiority complex, and I think that's one of the things that makes him so endearing to people is the fact that he comes across as this guy like I'm better than you.
Yeah.
We both know it. And it's just like you're adorable.
But not like that in real life. If you see any interviews or anything like
Right.
that, he's just like laughing and having fun. He does like
Right.
impressions and he's apparently a really good dancer and like that's why people I really like him in comparison to I always think of the comparison of Lyanna Headey from Game of Thrones.
Mhm.
People because she kind of still in real life kind of still shut off a little bit like she wasn't as popular in comparison to like Kit Harington, for example. For like taking photos of people, she was still a little like away, so she was similar to her character in real
Right.
life in comparison to where Tom Hiddleston is like opposite to like he's not super like he's a complete different person. He can flip that switch.
Hmm. Hmm. Yeah, I mean, it's one of those things, right? Where I think some people will often do that, where they mistake the actor for the characters that they play,
Hmm.
right? We've seen that so many times, and it's like, you know, no, that just tells you how good of an actor they really are,
Yes,
right?
yeah, exactly.
Especially when they play somebody who's so unlike them in real life, then it's like, wow, what a difference,
Hmm.
you know?
I couldn't do
Um,
that. I'm trying to get into a little bit of acting, but I would have to play like a normal guy. I couldn't play something too extravagant.
well, I can only speak for myself, and I'll tell you, it is so much fun playing the bad guy.
Oh yeah.
Because I played both. I played like the good guy, and I played the bad guy, and of course, the stuff in between. It's always most fun to play the two extremes.
Hmm.
Either you're like the hero, good guy, or you're like the super villain. And I think being the villain is more fun because you have so much more creative freedom. When you're a hero, especially when you're like the quote unquote good guy, the white hat, you have to play it a certain way because there are certain expectations and you have sort of boundaries, and you can't really go outside of those boundaries
Hmm.
because then you sort of fall out of that archetype and you become more of an anti-hero than anything else. Um, Whereas the villain can do whatever they want, right? You can be as over top as you want. You can be as scheming, as evil, as whatever you want. It's like
Hmm.
there's really no limit. And what's awesome is when an actor is given the freedom to really play that character however they want. Like,
Yeah.
the actor that comes to mind instantly for me would be like Alan Rickman. Because he had so many iconic bad guys. He had like Hans Gruber and Die Hard.
Yeah.
He had the Sheriff of Nottingham and Robin Hood. Like he had
Harry
Snape and
Potter.
Harry Potter,
Yeah.
right? Like he played all these guys and he played them so completely differently,
Hmm.
and yet each one is so
So
memorable.
iconic,
Right?
yeah.
Yeah.
But the when you said the funny thing is when you said Alan Rickman, when you were
Yeah.
talking about villains, even though you were talking about villains, the first thing that came to my mind with Alan Rickman was his role as an angel in Kevin
Dogma.
Smith Dogma.
Dogma.
Yeah, and
Yep.
then I'm like, that is completely not what you're talking about, but it's just the movie that comes to my mind because other than Harry Potter, that's the next movie that comes to my mind with Alan
Well,
Rickman.
there you go.
Or
Yeah.
Eye in the Sky. Eye in the Sky is the I think was his last role before he passed away. Where
Was it
he,
really?
yeah, I do believe so.
Wow.
To my
Okay.
knowledge, I haven't Googled it,
Yeah.
but I do believe so.
Okay.
Yeah. Speaking about villains,
Mhm.
holy shit, Kang the Conqueror. Like I know mostly again from the TV show, the cartoons and stuff like that, but
Yeah.
I've watched a few videos on it since the show's ended and everything. Like he's going to be now that especially since Sylvie killed this version, and we know he's confirmed in Ant-Man in the Wasp Quantum Mania, whatever it's called.
Mhm.
So we know he's coming back as another version, and we know it ended with Loki seeing this version of Kang. It doesn't specifically say Kang, like they don't specifically spell it out for you, but everyone that
Right.
knows anything comics related knows that that's who he is. Just because
Yep.
he's not blue doesn't mean he's not like he's not. It's
That's
not
right.
him, right?
That's right.
Like
That's right.
this like uh Kang the Conqueror, his portrayal, like I don't remember the actor's name, but his portrayal, like the way he like had that like little kid just watching them try to figure out what he's gonna do and just like having fun with it, and like the Wizard of Oz like portrayal of him like in
Very
the
much.
episode
Yep.
prior of like
Yep.
them destroying the statue, and then it's not
Yep.
that's not actually it, and it's how the out like the doors just kind of open revealing who he was. It was holy shit, like it was like yeah.
It had so many similarities to the Wizard of Oz. Now that you mention that, like look at it from the, like you say, the throne room with the three timekeepers there, which turn out to be fake. And then there's the big smoke monster, which to me is very similar to the big
The
smoke
big
head,
yeah.
right, talking to them. And then there's the castle in the distance, which to me was very similar to like the evil witch's castle in Wizard of Oz,
Yeah.
right? When they're heading to that, and then of course the reveal, and you see this guy, he's kind of this comical character, almost farcical, much like the wizard was in the Wizard of Oz, where he seems kind of harmless. Like he doesn't seem like this guy's going to be any kind of a threat to them. I really like the way he played it, in that sort of, easygoing, I'm not really a threat, and yet I'm probably the most powerful guy in the universe.
Yeah.
Right?
It was like, Thanos? That guy's a fly. Like, don't care about. Yeah.
Right. Exactly. So it'll be interesting to see how they approach it, because it's like the way he says it. Now there's going to be like an infinite number of variants of him. So I wonder if they're gonna have like one kill off all the others again, or is it going to be a case of where there's going to be a whole series of these Kangs that they're going to have to deal with? And I think one of the beautiful things about the way they've structured this is every Kang that you meet along the way can be a completely different Kang than the previous one.
Exactly,
right?
Just like how they showed the Loki in the first episode with like holograms. They had different versions.
Yeah.
One was, and as we just said, Kid Loki. There's different Lokis looking completely different. One could be one version of Kang could be a giant monster. Well, for all we know, right?
I'm guessing that the final version will be the one that we all know with the purple face and the green outfit and all that stuff. Which I think would be the right sort of choice,
of course,
to make eventually.
Yeah, right? Well, especially, but I have a feeling that version will probably be like the new Thanos. Like it will be one now that the multiverse is officially open. The Fantastic Four, the X-Men, like if either they'll have like little snippets of a version of him in each individual universe, or they'll all bring these into the main Marvel universe. Like, don't know how that's all gonna play out, but yeah, that he's either him because he's going to be the main new big bad, or like Mephisto is the next kind of like plausibility from WandaVision. So, because there's been so many like ties in with Mephisto as well. But yeah, he's definitely going to be especially since he's confirmed. We know for sure. So, but yeah, and now with this branching off, I wonder if the Eternals are going to be, because that's one of the next movies coming out pretty soon as well. Within I think this year or next year, something like that as well.
Yeah, it's supposed to.
Yeah, so how like. Whether that, if this branch reality, that's going to be the reason why they haven't interfered with anything since they've been on Earth since the caveman era or whatever. So
yeah,
does that mean that's why they weren't around, right?
I agree, because there's this big sort of plot hole around that entire premise, right? Because when you watch the preview for the Eternals movie, it's like you say. There's that line where it's like, we've been waiting in the shadows for the right time, and now the threat is big enough that we're gonna. It's like, really now? Like half the universe got wiped out, and that wasn't a big enough threat for you guys. Like, what's gonna what stakes have to be high enough? So you're right. If this is the reason why they haven't been around, and now that the multiverse is open, and now they show up, it will make way more sense. But I guess we'll see what they sort of come up with as an explanation for those guys.
Yeah, exactly. Because and that's going to be the same thing with. I guess not necessarily, but the same thing. The other movie is Shang-Chi, because that's. But I think that one, because he's not an Avenger. He's more like a defender. Right. So it would be more likely if they tie in. Because I think the guy who played Daredevil on Netflix's Daredevil is supposed to be confirmed as coming in the new Spider-Man movie. So I think Shang-Chi might more tie into that than to anything multiple. So, but Spider-Man is also a multiverse like movie now as well. Like everything is just so like around this multiverse, and because they've expanded all the way to the reaches of the galaxy with Guardians 2, and so now it's like, okay, we've been on Earth, we've been on small little suburbs, been big cities, entire planet, entire galaxies. Now everything is gonna have to be
Well,
multiverse.
I think it's smart to do it that way, because they really sort of touched on that already in the Into the Spider-Verse cartoon, right?
Such a good movie.
Um, and so, but here's the opportunity to literally bring that character into the MCU,
Hmm.
and all those characters into the MCU, because why not, right?
Especially considering What If is animated as well,
Exactly,
right?
exactly,
Yeah,
yeah,
it's only if Sony actually lets them.
right,
Yeah.
right, yeah, exactly.
Yeah, because Sony's a whole other thing. Cause yeah, because it's the same thing with like I heard on a TikTok creator I watched. He was talking about how um, they have what's his name? I keep on blanking on names tonight. The guy who plays Vulture in
Oh,
he
Michael Keaton.
yeah, because he's Vulture is in the Morbius trailer, so it's kind of connect.
Hmm.
But so that means that Tom Holland's Spider Man is, but like there's Sony. It's such a weird like connection between like
Yep,
Spider Man and Venom and Morbius, and like are they connected? Are they not? So maybe now it can
I know.
officially be officially.
Hopefully,
Yeah,
hopefully, right? Yeah, I know there's so many interconnections, and having Morbius in it, and that opens up the whole vampire thing, which means that Blade is
Blade.
somewhere around the corner,
Mm-hmm.
right? So there's all these great possibilities where they could take the sort of the next generation of these heroes.
Speaking about Blade, though, the thing that also is makes that confusion. This is just kind of coming to my mind.
Yeah.
Um, so we know that there's potentially crossover with the Netflix shows that potentially, and
Hmm.
but so the actor who played in Luke Cage in on the Luke Cage Netflix show,
Yeah.
which is connected to the Daredevil show, which we know is part of the Spider-Man movie,
Yeah.
but he's also the same actor who's playing Blade. So like what? Like, there's just it's. I guess it's gonna be another thing as kind of like just Mark Ruffalo replacing
Yeah. Ed
yeah. It's
Norton.
just Edward
Exactly.
Norton.
Right.
It's just yeah. It's just
Yeah.
they pick someone who's a good actor, but. And like and the AMC like the Agents of Shield show or Peggy Carter like some things are connected like
Hmm.
the actor who played Jarvis in Peggy Carter
Yeah.
is still did had an appearance in Endgame. So some of the ABC shows are connected, some are not. Like it's such a weird, like
Right.
convoluted thing between Marvel and Marvel Studios and Sony and Fox and Disney and yeah, it's such a
Right.
they have to get
I
everything
know.
tied together.
I think, yeah, I think if you approach it from the standpoint of like, don't focus on the actor as much as on the character, then you'll be okay, probably,
Hmm.
right? Because, like you say, they have a precedent, right? They did it with the Hulk, they did it with War Machine,
Yeah.
right? Where they've already changed the actors, and nobody really minded. It was like, all right, fine. I think where it gets tricky for them is trying to replace one of the big names,
Yeah.
right? Like you couldn't bring in another actor and say like this is Tony Stark now. The audience would have a really hard time
Ooh, yeah.
buying that, right? It'd be like, what are you doing,
Yeah.
right? Unless it's Robert Downey Jr., people just really aren't going to accept it,
Yeah.
you know.
At least Mark
But I think
Ruffalo was only one movie.
exactly,
Yeah.
exactly. So it was minor enough. Like he was a supporting character in the film, so I think people were more willing to be like, all right,
Hmm.
I'll give this a shot
Considering
instead.
it's the Hulk who's who you care about, not Bruce Banner, like quote
Right.
unquote, right?
It's true. It's
Yeah.
true. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah. To wrap off Loki stuff before we go into Black Widow, I do this with any get like any people I talk to, and we talk about like a
Yeah.
movie trailer or anything like that. Let's try to think. Let's make it a little bit easier. Normally I say five. Let's go three. Give me three good things you liked about the show and three bad things you did things you may not have liked or not as much or one
Okay.
weren't as good maybe.
Okay. Three things I did like. I like that they took risks. The show went in directions that I wasn't expecting. Um, I like the fact that they brought Loki back. That was
Yes.
great. The fact that when he died in Infinity
Infinity
War,
War.
that was heartbreaking, right? Because it was
Hmm.
like, and I know for a lot of fans it was, because this character we've all kind of grown to love, and the fact that when they killed him off, and you're thinking, oh damn it, like,
Is he just gonna come back again?
right, and then when he comes back in Endgame, we see him vanish. It's like, oh, this sort of opens up all these new possibilities. But it makes you wonder where they're going to go because, again, the character is a different character than the one who died. So, but that also gives you creative freedom. I think that's the beautiful thing about that. And I think they'll be doing a similar thing with Gamora in Guardians of the Galaxy, right?
Yeah.
Because she's really a different character than the one who died in the previous movie. So, it opens up a whole realm of possibilities. So I really like that. I like the fact that they brought Sylvie in, this other character who's this other version of Loki, and a possible love interest at the same time. It's really kind of weird. It's like,
do you love yourself? Yeah, exactly.
Somebody put it a really good way the other day. It was like, is this incest or is it masturbation? Like,
yeah.
What is this exactly? I'm not sure.
That's
a different person or yourself.
Yeah.
But I like the character, and I think there's some great possibilities there. The things that I didn't like, gosh.
Was there any?
It's a much smaller list as far as Loki's concerned. I think I would like to see Loki himself be more of a prominent character in his own story, if that makes sense. It was like, to me, the story kind of started out about him, but then it's almost like it became more about Sylvie than it did about him. It's almost like he was a supporting character in his own story.
Yeah, I see what you mean.
Show.
Yep.
And I would like to see it brought back to where he's the star of his own show, where the story revolves more around him and Sylvie is the supporting to his story. So I think that would be one detraction for me personally. But that's it's a minor quibble. If anything.
Exactly. And we already mentioned if they had more time, like it would be better. Yeah, it felt a little rushed.
Exactly.
So yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah. The old basic. I agree with you 100% on. Literally everything you just said. The thing I'm gonna add on to that as well is the first and second episode. The reveal I think was between the difference between the first and second episode and like the fourth and fifth were like they're two different types of stories because the first it was like okay there are variants and it seemed like it was going to be especially since the trailer showed like different Lokis and stuff like that. It seemed like it was going to be almost like a buddy cop almost type thing, and then like this, it was going to be a big reveal to who this variant Loki, like who this variant is, and they show this hooded figure in the end of the first episode, and then they revealed the second episode. Like I felt they could have pushed that to make it a little more dramatic of a reveal if they waited at least until the third episode. But I get
that's a really good point. A really good point.
Yeah, but again, that would have made more sense if they had at least a couple, maybe even just 8 episodes instead of 6, right? If they push it a little bit further to make it a little more intriguing. But then they but one thing and then they kind of like pushed it because I think maybe due to COVID they had to go a little bit faster. Maybe that's a reason because I know for sure that was a reason behind some of the plots of WandaVision and some of the plots of Falcon and Winter Soldier. So maybe there were some things that happened with that as well. I
would imagine it probably did affect in some way because I have read the same thing.
Yeah.
That production was truncated on all of these shows because of all these COVID issues.
Yeah.
Which I'm sure that meant a lot of rewrites.
Exactly.
But I think you bring up a really good point though about the buddy cop thing, and one interesting thing that now that you're talking about this, the way that it's set up for the initial first few episodes is you think it's going to be this buddy cop thing with Loki and Mobius.
Yeah.
But then it switches and becomes Loki and Sylvie, and Mobius becomes like kind of this total afterthought.
Yeah.
Right, and he really doesn't make any kind of significant, reappearance until the very end.
Until the very end when he saves Sylvie. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's almost a shame that happened because I really like the dynamic. Like I like both dynamics. I have to admit I like both relationships, but it's almost like if you're gonna set it up with Loki and Mobius, then you should see that one through.
Exactly. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. because like it was that scene in like second or third episode when they're going through and they're like, okay, trying to figure out who the variant is, like what's going on, and they have like a montage and then of like Loki figuring out like he's hiding out in like end of the world like events.
Yeah,
that was a good like character moment between the two of getting Mobius to trust Loki and figure it out and stuff like that. Like, and then that exactly as you just said, all that kind of just gets like blown away. Like they okay, he finally trusts him, but there's no real like dynamic between them after that. Right.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right. And it's like it was a shame. It was like, oh, you did all this setting up, but there's no real payoff for it. So I guess there's another sort of negative to add to that pile.
But again, neither of us are in the multi-million-dollar per episode area of Disney and Marvel, and I'm sure Kevin Feige knows what he's doing. But so
he's got a pretty good track record so far. Let's be honest.
Yeah, him and Louis Despinosa. Yeah, I think they know what they're doing. So yeah, and we're just nitpicking, little nitpicking as fans.
That's right. It is really just more nitpicky than anything.
Oh, 100%. The one thing I do love because I'm looking as getting like director / cinematographer. It's so the one thing that I found so beautiful was episode 3, I think it was, when they were on the planet 3 or 4, and the planet's crashing down on them, and the ship goes up, and it's like that whole scene of them trying to get onto that ship to get off the planet, so beautifully shot. It was just that was one of my like. In any of the shows that's come out on Disney Plus that I've watched on anything, that's been one of the best things. That's been so beautiful, like the colors, the you can see the panic of the civilians around, and like the determination of them, and then it just ends. The episode just doesn't work out.
Yep.
That's one of my favorite scenes.
I know, it was a great cliffhanger ending.
Yeah.
You know, it does bring up a good point though, or a good question. Is why were those guards trying to stop them from reaching the ship? When you think about it, because it's like, that's the last ship, and anybody who stays behind is going to die. So it's like, what's in it for those guards to keep anybody from going on it? It's like, why aren't they trying to get on it?
Yeah, I know. I was thinking this. Yeah, exactly. I was thinking that when I was watching the episode. I'm like, so yeah, you're reserving this for the rich and wealthy, but that means you're gonna die too, there, bud. So what do you care?
Exactly. Yeah. That part really didn't make much sense. It's like one of those things that you have to you sort of appreciate it, you know, as far as going from point A to point B in the story where they need the characters to go. But it's like, if you're scratching the surface in any way, you're like, that doesn't really make much sense.
Yeah, but that's gonna happen regardless. As you know as yourself as a writer, you're like, in real life this wouldn't make sense, but in my story it makes sense, right? You just have to. It's the suspension of disbelief, right?
That's true.
So I think we have covered Loki pretty well. I think we both agreed that it was the best of the 3 so far. What If, I'm definitely excited for What If, especially since now the branch reality, What If, all these stories could potentially be like real stories, like canon, right?
It'll be cool to see.
So that's definitely, but let's go into Black Widow. Black Widow, I'm very first thing I'm going to say about that is it definitely should have come out, not even last year when it was supposed to. I think it definitely would have made a lot more sense to come out when it should have come out right after Civil War. As my first point on that.
Definitely, 100%. That movie, it was really ill-timed. The fact that it came out after the character died.
Oh my god.
It just brings up so many questions going into the film. Like, is she back? Is she alive? Is this a prequel? And they don't really answer any of those questions in the previews, so you don't know until you start actually watching the movie. So I agree 100%. That movie should have totally have come out right after Civil War. It didn't. They chose to put out Captain Marvel instead. I think somebody really screwed the pooch.
Yeah.
To be honest, because I think Black Widow was a stronger film than Captain Marvel, and I think the fact that Captain Marvel was a brand new character who did not have a following, whereas Black Widow was a loved character that everybody knew, everybody loved. I think the audience would have been there. I don't know what the hesitation was on the part of the studios. As I understand it, it was like, oh, we don't know how well a female-led superhero movie is going to do. It's like, really?
And
Like,
then
she's
they
one of, like, everybody loves this character. Everybody loves the actress. I think it was like a no-brainer to me to make the film. You know,
Yeah, I don't know
so,
what they pushed it back so far for. Like
mhm,
regardless of because it was delayed a year because of COVID. So regardless of
yeah,
that,
yeah,
exactly like so they had to introduce Captain Marvel because like she's basically the one who wins Endgame, like
right,
essentially
yeah,
between her and freaking and Wanda. Wanda would have fucking killed Thanos herself in Endgame,
right,
but
yeah,
so they're the two strong. So they had to still introduce her, but yeah, they could have rearranged this. I think I have no idea why whether it was just Disney or if it was Marvel or what, like why they kind of decided to do that
hmm,
because yeah, exactly. Their support, we know how badass she already is. People were asking for a
yeah,
movie, and I don't know if this era of in between Civil War and Infinity War make sense. I personally think it would have made more sense as a either prequel, like her growing up into the like training, or
yeah.
her right at the end of the Red Room from being a Russian spy into transitioning into working for Shield. I think one of those eras
That would have been good.
it would have made a lot more sense. Like especially since like regardless of when they released it, like it would have just been a better movie overall. I think.
I think so. I think you're right. You know, there were a couple of missteps with this film. That's I think the biggest one. The other one I thought was kind of a misstep was the timing in the film itself. I thought was off, and by that what I mean is this idea that they are, essentially Russian plants living in America, but it's a very Cold War tactic. You know, like this was something that
Happened in the
actually happened
60s.
in the '60s, right?
Yeah.
Where you had like people from the Soviet Union pretending to be Americans. They were living in America. They trained over there in like these fake towns that were built to be very American,
Mm-hmm.
so that they could fit in when they came here and do all their spy business and whatnot. Um, so it had that feel to it, and yet it's set in like the mid
Yeah,
'90s.
95.
95. But like the Soviet Union's already been gone for like 6 years by this point. Like who are they actually working for? You know,
Is
this
it
Russian
Hydra
thing.
or
Yeah,
yeah?
yeah. It's like it's never really made clear,
Mm-hmm.
right? It's like it's not the Soviets anymore, and yet Red Guardian talks about like
Mother
the Soviet
Russia. Yeah.
Russia and the Soviet Union. You're like, what? Wait a minute, like
Mm-hmm.
that's all gone. So it was almost like they should have just said it like 10 years previous. If it was like '86 that all this happened, it would have made way more sense,
Mm-hmm.
right? Because that would have been literally the height of the Cold War, right? When sort of all the fears and all the paranoia, everything was at its
Yeah.
absolute peak,
Yeah.
right? Um,
Because that's the Cuban Missile Crisis and when and everything, right? Was it in the
no, that
80s?
was no. The Cuban Missile Crisis was Kennedy. That was like 1962.
Oh, I was completely wrong. Good thing.
Yeah, no, but no, the '80s. That was like Gorbachev and Reagan. You know,
Right.
Mr. Gorbachev, tear down your wall.
Right,
That sort of thing,
right.
right?
Yeah,
Like,
yeah, yeah.
it was like tensions were at a sort of like really high again.
You were
You had
alive
all
back
this sort
then.
of right?
Yeah.
Because you had all this like very much the anti-Soviet propaganda on the one end and the anti-American propaganda going the other way,
Okay.
right? Where it's like you'd have like we're not going to your Olympics and we're not going to your Olympics and stuff like this, right? And it just sort
Mm-hmm.
of seemed to get worse and worse and worse. And thankfully, Sylvester Stallone sort of fixed everything because Rocky beat the Russians in Afghanistan, or sorry, Rambo beat the Russians in Afghanistan, and Rocky beat the Russians in the boxing ring, and so he sort of won it, 1-2 punch, and then communism fell. So thank
Oh.
you, Sylvester Stallone.
Oh, okay.
This is just a little history lesson for all you folks.
Yeah. Okay. How? So you're talking about you're talking about the age. This is before I was born. But how old were you when this was happening?
I was a kid still. Well, I
Yeah.
was I was a little kid when these things came out, so it was like I was old enough to actually remember them.
Yeah.
Um, you know, but it was like the timing of everything was just so funny. Like
Uh,
I remember, especially like I think it was Rambo 3 came out, and it came out like '88, I want to say something like this, or '89 even. And literally the Soviet Union fell like a few months after that movie came out. So it was like the sort of running gag between myself and my friends when we were little that like Rambo won the Cold War single handedly, right?
so Rambo won the Cold War the same way how the interview almost started World War III.
That's right. That's right. Exactly. Exactly. So yeah.
Yeah, because I know Rocky. What Rocky is that? Two, three,
Four.
where four?
Four.
Okay,
Like Drago.
I've
Yeah.
seen, yeah, because I've seen, I remember vaguely watching some of them with my dad when I was younger, and
Yeah.
the Creed movies, like Creed 1 and 2 with
Yeah.
Michael B. Jordan, are one of my like I don't really remember the Rocky movies, but I know like Creed, and I know that like because they bring up the history of Rocky in Creed, and
Yeah.
those are such phenomenal movies. Michael B. Jordan is phenomenal, and he's one of the best villains in the MCU, bringing that up regardless anyway, to keep it on topic of Marvel. But Killmonger is hands down like the best villain of the entire series. But yeah.
If you liked Creed 2, if you like the whole Drago thing and between him and Creed, you will love Rocky 4.
Mm-hmm.
Like you get to see his dad, Ivan Drago in his prime, and it's like I'll tell you, man, the first time I saw that when I was little, you see this monster of a guy. Like
Yeah.
there's Stallone, and then there's this guy towering over him, like I kid you not, this much taller.
And
He's like
Stallone's
this
already.
wall of, like,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, because who's the guy who plays Drago?
Dolph Lundgren.
Dolph Lundgren. Yeah, and I know that there's this stat that Stallone asked Dolph to punch him in the face as hard as he could, and he
Yeah.
literally knocked him out. Like this is not part of the movie, but it was like offset or whatever. Yeah, and Lundgren is yeah.
No, it was worse than that. It wasn't okay. So what happened was they were doing a scene, and Stallone has this thing where he wants it to look real. So he will actually ask the other actor sometimes to hit him for real.
Mm-hmm.
And he did it with like Carl Weathers. He did it with Mr. T.
Right.
Stallone's a very tough guy. He's genuinely a tough man.
He's expendable.
So yeah. So
One,
he's
two,
like,
and three.
basically
Yeah.
like give me a shot where you actually hit me.
Mm-hmm.
And apparently, as the story goes, and I've seen interviews with both him and Dolph
Mm-hmm.
talking about it. Dolph hit him, and he apparently he hit him in such a way that he kind of hit him in the chest more than he did him in the face, and it gave Stallone basically a heart attack,
Oh, fuck.
and they had to take him to the hospital. So the production was delayed for a few weeks, apparently because he was in the hospital recuperating from this blow, where Dolph was like, "Oh my God, I hope I didn't just kill the star of this movie," you know.
Oof. Yeah, that's a little more. That's a little more than just a little bop on the face that happens occasionally.
And Stallone, to his credit, he's like, "Well, I asked for it," so it's like he didn't even hold a grudge.
Good thing he laughed it off, right?
just tells you how awesome he is.
Yeah.
So.
How did we get off topic from that? Where were you?
Russia.
Oh,
We're
Russia.
talking
Right.
Russians,
Right.
So yeah. So if we double back to Black Widow, how that all plays out, I guess what did you like about Black Widow?
So okay, I it's really hard because it felt like it definitely was not my favorite MCU film. I did like the kind of family dynamic, like the kitchen of the like kind of talking, kind of getting back to know each other a little bit, and like laughing or whatever, and just heard the mom whatever like adding leftovers or whatever, and chit chatting. I did like how what's his name, Russian Guardian or Red Guardian, how he was like. Still, they add the little comedic of him trying to fit in his suit and everything, and it kind of being like too big for him. That's very, very like Family Guy or Simpsons or something like that style.
That was a great scene.
That was.
Great.
I liked and disliked at the same time the escape of him escaping from prison because it seemed the scene itself was good, but it also seemed like a little too easy. But like, and the thing that was okay, I'll come back to this, but uh, I like the dynamic between the two sisters, between her and Elena.
Yeah.
And she actually was really good, really well cast. The actress who played Elena.
Yeah, Florence Pugh, she was fantastic.
A lot of people that I've heard reviews for this movie said that she stole the show 100 like
I
100%.
think so.
Yeah, she
Yeah.
was definitely the standout character. Um, yeah, there were definitely good points on it. It's definitely not a terrible movie, but
Yeah.
like we said, it didn't feel right. Like the word I've been saying to people that I've been talking about it so far is that it felt like a filler, like a filler
Yeah.
episode, like a filler episode of a show. Like it was just not necessary, right?
Well, that's exactly it. It wasn't. It doesn't really fit anywhere in the greater scheme of things. It's sort of just a branch sticking out because it's not one of these movies that ties anything together, right? It's a prequel. It's not a prequel that's a really necessary one, and I think it was kind of a missed opportunity. It could have been a bigger and better send off for Scarlett Johansson because I think she deserved better personally.
100%.
She's a phenomenal actor. I thought she did. She took a relatively obscure comic character. Let's be honest. Black Widow wasn't exactly a well-known character to anybody before she brought the character to life, and yet she made her like a very lovable and there's so many little girls, like my little girls, they both love her. They think she's like a wonderful character. They love her in all the Marvel movies. I think she's probably their favorite female superhero.
Female represent. In comparison to Wonder Woman.
Yeah, I think they like her even more than Wonder Woman.
Oh wow, wow! Good for, there you go. Marvel for the win.
It's probably because they were introduced to her before Wonder Woman, so I think she probably just has that special place for them.
Fair enough.
And she's been in more movies, right?
Yeah.
So they've sort of gotten to know the character a lot better.
And it's the live action compared to just cartoons like that
Right.
would have been around. Yeah, the cartoon.
Exactly.
Oh my god, the kids' cartoons nowadays are so terrible.
It's true. It's true.
90s is
That's a whole other topic. Right
yeah.
there.
Oh my god. Yeah.
I think we'll have to have a separate discussion on that one.
100%.
But I agree. It's interesting. It was like kind of a mixed bag, right? Like at the end of the day, I think they did some things right. I think the positives that come out of this film are the fact that we've got a couple of new characters that we can see moving forward. Yelena being the first, I think. Red Guardian being another. Possibly the Melina, the mom character.
Yeah.
She could also be moving ahead
As a background character, like kind of like tertiary characters or something, like kind of like
Exactly.
What's her name? The blonde in Captain America. Not Peggy Carter. Sharon Carter. So kind of like in that realm.
Yes, exactly. Whereas I think Yelena has a opportunity to be really the next Black Widow.
Yeah.
They could really make her that, and I think they probably should. If they're smart about it.
Yeah, which is the only reason that movie was made. Is just to introduce a new Black Widow.
I think so. I think so. That's about the only continuity that comes out of this movie. Let's be honest.
And and the vest that Scarlett Johansson wears in Infinity War.
They made such a big deal out of this like totally pointless piece of clothing. It's like, oh, she wore that. Really? She wore that vest, and I guess so. Yeah. Okay.
Okay.
Cool.
Yeah. Exactly. No one. It's just okay. That's just the wardrobe department the wardrobe department really was like, okay, well, we have to have some backstory on this.
Exactly. Like they made such an issue out of that vest. I was like, okay, cool, I guess. But one thing though that they did bring up in the movie, and I haven't seen anybody actually bring this up, and I think it's something that could be kind of important in the whole Marvel universe, is the fact that Red Guardian talks about his rivalry with Captain America.
Yeah, I know. Yeah.
And when you that makes no sense in the context of it's not Steve Rogers, because Steve Rogers was frozen until 2012. That's when he was thawed. So how could the Red Guardian have fought him in the 80s when he was still working for the Soviets?
The thing that I think, because they said Captain America, they didn't say Steve Rogers, so
That's
they're
right.
probably
That's right.
referring to Black Captain America from Falcon
That's
and the Winter
right.
Soldier, because
Exactly. It's Isaiah Bradley.
Isaiah Bradley.
I think that's exactly what they're leading into.
Yeah.
And that would be fantastic if they bring up a rivalry between those two characters that comes up. I think that would be so cool. And I hope that's the direction that they're going.
That is if Falcon and Winter Soldier gets a season 2 or a continuation in a Captain America 4 type
Right.
thing. Yeah, exactly.
Exactly.
To bring that reason behind it, so that because I've heard a lot of things, because they even mentioned that in the movie. He was like, "Oh, Captain America was still frozen," but no one knows about Isaiah in
That's right.
universe.
That's right.
Yeah.
Even in the comics, they actually did this where when they when they retconned the whole Captain America story and they had it that Steve Rogers was frozen at the end of World War II, and then thawed out in the 80s. Then they had to sort of explain how were there Captain Americas all throughout the 50s, the 60s, the 70s. And so the creative minds at Marvel came up with this idea that the American government basically had a line of Captain Americas. There were actually, I think, 3 of them in between the time where he's frozen and thawed out. So there were a couple of guys. There was one guy who was the Spirit of 76. He was like that was his that was the superhero, and then he becomes Captain America. Then he dies, and then they bring in this other guy who looks like Steve Rogers, and they inject him with a type of super soldier serum. But then it drives him nuts. So eventually he goes crazy, and they kind of quietly retire him.
Yeah.
And then I think there was a third guy, and then there was Steve Rogers again.
Yeah.
So it was kind of cool.
More similar to Bucky's Winter Soldier's version, because his super soldier is not as good as Cap's version,
That's
as
right.
Steve's version.
That's right.
Because he's like 80% as good as Steve.
Right.
I would say, because like for example, you see like in Infinity War, Captain America and Black Panther are running up. That you see them running up first, but it's like Bucky is still held back because of that. Like or Red Guardians, I guess, would be similar, or because anything rush like the. Oh no, I'll continue. I'll let you continue with on your point. That's where I have another point on that as well, but I'll let you continue where you are. The one thing that was again similar to what you said, how they never really mentioned Red Guardian in the MCU at all or anything. They did a big thing in Civil War about how the Russians had they copied the superhero soldier serum or whatever, and like the Red Skull is the same thing, where it's originally a German scientist and everything. It's all the same premise. It's the same, and then in the MCU it's the same thing with the Hulk. The Hulk is based off of that as well. Like it's all variants off of that. But they showed it in Civil War on how the Russians, they were like, okay, the Americans have this. We're gonna build our own version, and that's the Winter Soldier program, starting with Bucky and other people, and then even I think even Iron Man 3, it's a slight variant of it as well, with the flame, like how they grow body parts or whatever. That movie's trash anyway, but it's based off of that same premise, right? It's all linked to that idea, but Red Guardian is just. Okay, I have this super soldier serum. They never mentioned it before, and it's like, okay, so the Russians were focusing on Winter. So why is he not a Winter Soldier? Why is he like? Was he the first? Like, no, he can't be the first because he's alive in this day and age. So why is he not a Winter Soldier? Because like it's Bucky's the only one with the arm cut off, right?
Yeah.
So and every other Winter Soldier, and Bucky even got his ass kicked damn near by the other Winter Soldiers in Civil War in the flashback. So like, why is Red Guardian? And Red Guardian is like the weakest version of a super soldier. It seems like.
Yeah, I know. It's definitely an inconsistency there. Yeah, I agree. it's one of those things. I think when you have so many films to and TV shows and all this material to work with as a writer, trying to connect it all, that can be, I think, a really big challenge for any writer.
Mm-hmm.
You know, trying to come up with, especially trying to sort of inject a new character that fits into the world that we've already seen. So, like a Red Guardian, which would be like, okay, we need to throw a character in that fits in the 80s/90s. And it's like, how do you do that without, jeopardizing stuff that you've already presented, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I think is a really big challenge. It's so much easier to just present a brand new character from the present moment,
Mm-hmm.
right? Because then you don't have to worry about continuity. You don't have to worry about retconning anything. You don't have to worry about anything. It's just like, here, we're just going from here. This is our starting point,
Mm-hmm.
right? So yeah, I think that's a big challenge for writers.
Yeah, I think that's definitely going to be a bit of an issue as well, especially considering the Weapon X program. If they now with the branched realities coming out from Loki, is Wolverine going to still be part of this Weapon X of recreating this? Because that's the same thing, right? It's recreating the Canadians' version of recreating the Super Soldier Serum. But he has the mutant gene as well, right? So now like that's going to be another thing coming forward. Or is he going to still be part of the Weapon X program now that, like, because all of the previous movies are not going to be canon to MCU, obviously, but so
Well,
where's that going to lie?
I think they can get around the whole mutant thing by saying they come from an alternate universe.
Mm-hmm.
I think if they do that, that'll sort of just answer that question, and then you don't have to worry about continuity as much.
Yeah.
Because then it's like whatever their history is, it's separate from this history, right? Yeah, it'll be interesting to see. I mean, that said, they did kind of open up a mini can of worms in Black Widow. And again, this is one of those blink and you'll miss it moments. The arm wrestling scene where Red Guardian breaks that big guy's arm.
Mm-hmm.
Well, the big guy in the credits, it's Ursa Major, who happens to be a mutant. He's actually a Soviet. He was one of the Soviet. They had their own sort of superhero group, kind of their own Avengers. And he was this big guy who can turn himself into a bear.
Yes, I've seen the cartoon of that. Yeah.
Yeah. So they call him by that name in the movie. So it's like if he's the same character, that means he's a mutant, which means that the mutants already exist in the MCU, which then of course opens up this whole can of worms. But it might just be sort of like a wink sort of to the camera and just like.
Okay, yeah. Well, they are kind of playing on that because they did mention it slightly in Ant-Man and the Wasp with Janet Van Dyne, how she had changed things. Like I think they even used the word mutate in the quantum realm or whatever. I do believe so. And in WandaVision, because originally like Wanda and Pietro are Magneto's children, but they don't have Magneto in the MCU, so they just said, okay, she got her powers from the Mind Stone. So, but now in WandaVision, they said that she had this power in her all along. So it's kind of like, are they gonna just include the mutants, or are they not? Like, are they gonna be? There's so many things because again, going back to Loki, it's gonna be like what's gonna happen, and now Fantastic Four is being confirmed. So are they gonna get their powers from a solar flare like in the original thing, or is that gonna be another Infinity Stone that gave them the power? Like, there's gonna be so many things now that Marvel actually has all these extra properties that they actually can go back onto compared to in the 90s when they didn't. So it's like
it'll be interesting.
I
think it'll be a big challenge for the writers to pull it off well.
Oh, of course.
But I think I think we both sort of agree that there were some pluses to Black Widow, but there were also some minuses to it. And one of the things I touched on before, and I don't know, I think this is probably what led you to want to talk about today, was this idea. I thought this was a huge misstep in the storytelling. In having Black Widow, they do this thing where they call back to the Budapest job that she talks about in the very
first Avengers movie, yeah, with
right?
Clint.
With Clint, right? Her and Hawkeye had this thing in Budapest, right? And so for all these years since like 2012, we've all been wondering like what the heck was this Budapest job? And so now they finally call back to it in this film, and we find out what it is, and it's an assassination.
Yeah.
And she tells us through this flashback that she has to assassinate this ex-Soviet general who's the head of this Red Room program. That created her, basically. And this is her way to get into S.H.I.E.L.D. And Clint is there helping her do this job, and so S.H.I.E.L.D. is there, Clint is there, blah, blah. And then we find out that she basically, to do this, she has to murder this guy's daughter. Because this guy's daughter shows up, and that's the only way they can assure that he'll be in this one location that they're going to blow up. And the only way they can ensure that he'll be there is if this little girl was there. And it just bugged me to no end. I'm sitting there in the theater, and I'm like, who said this was a good idea?
Yeah.
What writer thought this was a good idea, and what executive at the Marvel or Disney side thought that it's a good idea for the superheroes, for the good guys, to be okay with murdering a little girl. It's like, because when you think about it, it's not just her. It's like she's okay with murdering a child, Hawkeye is okay with murdering a child, and S.H.I.E.L.D., this organization which is supposed to be the good guys, they're okay with murdering a child, which means that Nick Fury, who would have been the guy running the organization at that time, that he's okay with murdering a child.
It was not. It was not. No, according to just on. I 100% agree with you. But the only thing I don't, if according to Captain Marvel, Fury wasn't the head of S.H.I.E.L.D. at that time.
Okay, maybe.
But still, it would have been. But I 100% agree, especially coming from you that has daughters, children, right? Yeah. So that's a fan of these movies, and
like you just painted superheroes in an irredeemable light.
Yeah.
Like to me the solution was extremely simple. Like rather than having it this method where it's like she's like, well, this is the price we have to pay and click the button. It's like whoa. There is no way that this same character, that was in the Avengers, let's say, would do this.
Yeah.
She would be the one to be running into that building to put herself in between harm's way to save that child.
Oh.
She wouldn't be the one pushing the button to blow her up.
Right? Especially when they have a master long shot. Like Hawkeye could have taken him out. They established, like you just said, they established that Hawkeye was there. They could have got him just to take out just him, silently. Easy, boom.
We see him through the window. It's like, you're telling me Hawkeye couldn't have taken that shot?
Yeah, and we know that Hawkeye's powerful enough, and that accurate enough. In the first Thor movie, he's there strong enough to. Granted, Thor was powered down at the time, but he's accurate enough to do that.
Yep, that's right. It's like it just made no sense, and it really just infuriated me. I was watching that, I couldn't get over it for the rest of the movie. I'm like, how the hell did they think this was going to be okay?
Especially since they call back the first time they mentioned Budapest, it's her going, it's just like Budapest all over again in the first Avengers movie, as if it was a conflict, like Rwanda, for example, in real life, right? As if it was a peacekeeping mission and they're fighting, it's a gunfight or something like that.
Yeah.
And then Hawkeye goes you and I remember Budapest completely differently. His recollection makes sense to what the movie is. Yeah, there's so many flaws, especially the other big flaw that I noticed was during Endgame when they come back and Hulk goes did she have Cap says, did she have any family, or whoever says it, and they're like, well, yeah, we were their family, and then so this is made to be set Cap would have known that between the time of them getting back together for Endgame, they would have discussed who's her other family.
Yeah, that she has a sister. That she has this mother and father surrogates. Yes. Exactly. There's no way they wouldn't have traded war stories after getting back together, right?
Especially in Age of Ultron 1, since they do talk to war stories in Age of Ultron.
Exactly. Yeah. Exactly. So it made no sense. And to me, it's like I thought like the solution to that would have been so simple in that, okay, you still have it that she has to kill this guy to get into S.H.I.E.L.D. Fine. But then imagine if that's all set up, this bomb is going to go off, their task is to just keep him in there, right? But then this little girl shows up and she goes in, and Natasha's going like, oh shit, like I have to stop this. And so she tries to run in to stop it, but by that point it's too late and the thing goes off. Now it paints her in a light where it's like, no, she wanted to prevent the death, and yet she still feels guilty for it. As opposed to being the person who actually clicks the button and tries to murder a child.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's like they're two very different things.
Yeah.
It's like it harkens to WandaVision in a lot of ways for me, and I sort of touched on that before, and on Facebook. This idea that there's this moral ambiguity that they're projecting onto these superheroes that I really don't like. Superheroes are supposed to be the best of us. That's sort of the idea behind a superhero. Is these are the people who are so selfless, they will kill themselves before harming innocent people, right? And yet,
especially for Marvel.
Right, especially in Marvel, and so this is now the second time where we've seen a Marvel superhero do something actually evil, where they're actually causing harm to innocent people. And WandaVision was the first, where you've got Wanda literally taking over this entire town full of innocent people, and she never really pays for doing this. Like there's no justice for her doing this. At the end, she's actually presented almost like a victim of her own doing. It's like she created this fantasy world, and she rewrote these people's minds and forced them to do and behave against their will. And then the other character turns to her and they're like, oh, they'll never know what you sacrificed. It's like, really? Like, what she sacrificed?
Yeah.
Like, oh my God, what did she do to all these poor people? What
the entire town, exactly. When you see when Vision first starts figuring out, he sees the anguish on the guy's face in the office.
Yeah.
The only thing I have to say on that note, though, is that she is slated to be more of a villain for Multiverse of Madness, though. So Doctor Strange is probably going to have to fight her in Multiverse of Madness to continue forward. So, but 100%, to kind of quote unquote pay for it type thing, she's still not gonna. It's still not gonna be like in the first one where like Dormammu loses or whatever. Because it's still gonna be obviously Marvel, so they're not gonna kill her or anything. Most likely not. But yeah,
I don't think they will either.
But she is gonna be more of a. She is becoming more of a villain though. It just kind of bugged me. I think the tone of that ending bothered me. It wasn't so much that she did it. I understood why in the context of the story she did it. And the mind, the frame of mind that she was in. Yeah.
And what bothered me was just sort of that throwaway line at the end by this other character of sympathizing with her and her plight and saying basically, well, you giving up on this fantasy family of yours somehow makes up for what you did to these innocent people. And it's like, no, it doesn't.
No.
It doesn't make up for it at all.
No. Yeah.
It's like...
Oh, yeah, 100%. You're yeah, exactly. I definitely, yeah. That's like, what's the quote? A villain is who lives long enough to see themselves become the hero, or something like that.
The Batman quote, right?
Yeah.
Every hero sort of lives long enough to see themselves become the villain.
Yeah, exactly.
Right?
And then also Stanley has said specifically that Tony Stark, he created Tony Stark as a character that was as a hero, but it was a hero that people was meant to be hated as being obnoxious and know-it-all and a drunk and
he was everything. He was the male chauvinist pig. He's the womanizer. He's the alcoholic. He's the brainiac know-it-all with the superiority complex. Exactly.
Yeah. So he was trying to create. He was challenging himself to create this character. So it's definitely not the first time. Or take Hank Pym for example. It's not the first time in the comic world where someone who's done something wrong to like two wrongs to justify a right type thing, for example, or like Winter Soldier with Shield, how like we're gonna take out people before they become the bad guy. And that's the whole thing behind.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, I agree. And it's one of those. It's kind of a tightrope to walk. It's a very fine line for the creators of these characters. I think, and you bring up some excellent examples of this, where they do something that the character does that's pretty much irredeemable. I don't know if you can hear my cat yelling like crazy right now.
Yeah,
he wants his dinner.
Put him on camera. Let's say hi.
Come here, buddy. So this is Thor.
Oh, God of Thunder!
He is kind of like the bro Thor, because he's got a big tummy, but he's a lovable guy. Like, you know, he's just a sweetheart, aren't you, buddy?
Oh, he's like, nope, I'm not looking at camera. Nope, go away.
His brother Loki is somewhere around here.
Oh, Thor and Loki, that's hilarious.
Can you tell I'm a Marvel fan?
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah. So, what was I saying?
Characters that emerge.
So
yeah.
It's a fine line, I think, that the creators walk, because when they have their heroes do these irredeemable acts at times, sometimes they can win the audience back again, and sometimes they can't. And Hank Pym, I think, is a great example of a character that's never been able to recover from that. Because in the comics, what happened with him was, I'm not sure if you mentioned this, but in the comics, what happened with him was he hit his wife. He he physically abused her, and it turned the audience against that character. And no matter what Marvel tried to do with him afterwards, no matter how sorry they made him, they made the character go through therapy. They made him do like all these things, like where Janet forgave him in the comics. Like they went to all these great lengths, and yet the audience never got over it, and the audience never forgave the character.
Hence why
no, he's just a piece of shit abuser, and that's all he'll ever be.
Yeah, hence why it's Scott Lang instead of Hank Pym. Like
exactly. Exactly right.
Yeah, because like there was the dynamic that they knew there was such a negative premonition. Like they still included him as like the person who created the tech or whatever, and he is part of Tony's funeral and everything. He's kind of just there, kind of like he never liked the Starks in the MCU or anything, but they still kind of include him, but they don't reference that at all.
That's right, because the movie version, you don't get the sense that guy would ever have beat on his wife. That it's a completely different character than the comic version. But and they were smart not to go down that road. Because it's one of those things that like the audience just will not get over it. And I think they made a mistake with this in this film with Black Widow. And I think the only thing that sort of saved them is the fact that she's basically gone as a character now. But had they done this early on with her character, like imagine if they did this in the Avengers movie or one of the Iron Man movies where they first introduce her, and they show her doing this, nobody would have liked her going forward. People would have said like get rid of her, she's a child killer, like we don't want to see her, right? You contrast that with somebody like Tony Stark, and it's like
he created Ultron.
Right, like he did exactly. Like he did something bad, but at the same time, it's that comic book, it's not real, quote unquote. So it's not really evil. It's just like comic book evil. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, and technically, in the movies, like because Hank Pym was the one who created Ultron in the comics, but regardless of that, but like in the movies, he convinces Bruce to create Ultron, and his justification's what makes sense, and the only reason that Ultron becomes evil is because plot reasons, right? It's not same thing with in the MCU. Mysterio is an ex-employee of Stark. Like same thing with what's his name? The first villain of the first Iron Man movie, Jebediah Stane or whatever his name is.
Yes,
like
with Vulture. With the Vulture, right?
Exactly. Every character is created as a villain because like Tony Stark is so like bad to them, or he doesn't like them, or whatever. But it's not necessarily that he's he's a cocky guy, especially in the first like two movies or whatever.
Yeah.
He's cocky, he's a know-it-all and whatever, and he grows as a person. But that's just him growing as a person, not necessarily him being like a villainous person. It's just
That's right.
he's just a bit of an asshole.
Evil.
Yeah,
Exactly. And there's a big difference between being an asshole and doing something actually evil, right? And the audience picks up on that, and they see the difference between it. And I think the writers that they have now are kind of like at times blurring the two, and maybe they themselves don't see the difference. And it's almost like you guys should really check with your audience. Like, don't knock your audience. Always get that feedback from them and say, like, how does this make my hero look to you?
yeah.
Is this something that you would say, oh yeah, I can get over this, or is this something where you're going to be like, no, don't do that?
Yeah,
right.
Kind of like hence what, like I said earlier today, hence why in my opinion, and I think a lot of people's opinion, Killmonger is definitely one of the strongest villains of the MCU because his reasoning is a little definitely well, his plan is a little too extreme, but his reasoning is very justified, right? He's a very like it's not just I'm a bad guy. His reasoning to what happened to him, what happened to his people, what happened to his culture, etc., etc. It's very believable. It could happen. It basically has happened in real life, right? So it's right.
That's the best. That's the best villains. The best villains are the ones that you can understand their motivations. You don't condone it. You don't condone their methods, but you understand why they do the things they do. Like Dr. Octopus in Spider-Man 2, the Sam Raimi movie.
Yes,
it's another phenomenal superhero, supervillain. I mean, in the sense that you truly empathize with him. You understand why he is. I thought the Vulture, for me, is one of my favorite Marvel villains because I really understand his reasoning for doing what he does. I'm like, I get it.
He's supporting his family.
Exactly. I'm a dad. I totally understand this. Like, imagine losing your livelihood because of some jerk, and you feel like you have no other choice. So it's like, I get it. When I go to those extremes, no, of course not. But there's a difference, I think, between a normal person and a villain. And yet, if you can create that sense of empathy in your audience, I think you create a really strong villain, a really strong character,
regardless of being hero or villain.
Exactly.
Hence why they gave Thanos an actual reasoning behind it for his wanting to, because he resources are like granted Infinity, he could have just created more resources for people, which is flawed, but instead of just being like, oh, I'm just gonna kill everyone just like he to impress death like in the comics, they were like, here's an actual somewhat justifiable reason for his mindset, at least. Right.
It's psychotic, but it makes a weird kind of sense.
A little bit,
right?
exactly.
Or a little bit. Like, as long as you're not thinking about it too much, right? You're like, well, I guess it kind of makes sense, right? And you're thinking to yourself, so it's something that you can see a supervillain doing. But it gives him a bit of humanity in the sense of, like, he's not doing it for evil's sake. It's not like, I'm going to kill half the universe because I want to kill half the universe. Right? It's like, no, he's doing it because he wants to save the other half. So it's a really interesting sort of mentality, right? It's like that idea of being in a shipwreck, and you're on a stranded on a boat, and there's only enough food for half the people on the boat. So it's like, do you all starve together, or do you throw half the people overboard so that the other half can live? And that's really, to me, that's what his mentality was. So we can kind of understand it.
Exactly.
But again, you don't condone it.
Right? It's that little grain of salt that you understand. That you get where he's coming from. Yeah.
Exactly.
So going back to Black Widow, then, like that's where that was the other question I was going to ask you about Black Widow. One of the other big things that really bothered me about this movie. Again, I don't have a whole lot of actual comic book knowledge, but oh my God, Taskmaster was so terrible. It was like they portrayed it as being like, okay, it's until the reveal that it's his daughter, which is still terrible, but like it's like they portrayed it as being like an android or something instead of being the man that he is. Like, I get that they're allowed to kind of like take bits and pieces and kind of make it as they want. But the Taskmaster, they were hyping it up so much as like having Hawkeye's arrows, and they fought with similar styles Captain America with a shield, and as if this character has been a part of the universe. They've maybe had like random fights with these characters. Hawkeye, for example, when he was in Shield, like as if like that's how we knew it. But it was such terrible. Oh, it was so bad.
So in the comics, Taskmaster is actually a mutant, and his ability is a really super cool one. He can copy anything he sees, like any physical movement that somebody does. He can copy it just by watching it. Mm-hmm. So he's presented as this when he was just a kid. He could do what like Olympic athletes, like he would watch like an Olympic gymnast performing, and he could just copy it instantly by watching it. It's almost like the idea being like, imagine Mozart, who can copy any piece of music he hears. Mm-hmm. Well, Taskmaster can copy any physical act that he sees. And so naturally, this is a character that's got this great potential to be a great villain, right? He becomes this mercenary for hire, and the way he does his jobs is he just watches superheroes. He watches how they behave, how they act, how they fight, and then he just copies their moves, mm-hmm. right? So he fights like he fights like Captain America. He can throw the shield like him. He can do the arrows with like Hawkeye. He can do like pretty much anything, right?
Yeah.
He doesn't have like super strength or super speed or anything like this, but he's like sort of peak physical condition.
Mm-hmm. Batman.
Batman, exactly. So imagine Batman that can copy anybody's movement.
Yeah.
Right. That's sort of the idea here. And then on top of that, he's a real kind of this great wise ass character. He's very much like Deadpool.
Okay.
He's sort of the flip side of that, whereas Deadpool kind of has this moral code where he actually tries to protect the innocent. He kind of does. Deadpool will sort of go out of his way to protect the innocent, mm-hmm. Even though he's crazy. Taskmaster doesn't have that sort of holding him back. He just doesn't care. Mm-hmm. It's like whatever the highest bidder is, that's what the job he's going to do, whatever it is.
More like Deathstroke.
Yeah, he's very much kind of like that. You know, and so like the potential with this character in this universe, I think, was fantastic. They could have done so much with this character, mm-hmm. and then, like you say, for them to turn it into this, like, well, it's just a
chip on the back of her neck,
like a chip on the back of her neck that makes her this way, and it's like, but then why are they pretending she's a man? That part made no sense. It's like.
Then why doesn't every Black Widow have this chip? Like,
yeah. It's like, plus, I mean, to me, it's like it's an organization of women where all the soldiers are women, and yet you have this one who's a woman, but you're pretending that she's a man. Why? Why are you pretending? Like, why did that just have her look like the rest of them? Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? Like there was no reason for her to be in that funny-looking getup. To begin with, mm-hmm. So it was just like, yeah, okay. It was like everything that was driving it was just this reveal, right? Like the gotcha moment of like, aha, it's actually this girl. And it's like, okay, which we saw coming, you know, from left base.
It would have made more sense to introduce Taskmaster as a character when Hydra and Shield were still a thing. Like if they like during like introducing like during a fight with like Hawkeye or something like that, when Hawkeye was still an agent of S.H.I.E.L.D. and everything, like somewhere in that mythos of between the first Iron Man movie to Captain America Winter Soldier or something in that somewhere in there.
When you think about it, they could have easily introduced him as a character in the Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. TV show. Because that's all that mm-hmm. TV show was all about: S.H.I.E.L.D. versus Hydra, mm-hmm. right? So the opportunity was there, for all those years that they mm-hmm. had, right? And he wouldn't have had to be a major character. They could have just like literally introduced him, had him in a couple of scenes or a couple of episodes, and then he vanishes.
Like what they did with Ghost Rider.
Exactly.
Yeah, but the only thing with that is that that show is not officially canon. It's right. That's where they would still have to reintroduce it for the MCU. Yeah. But still, there's so many like I said before, this movie is such a filler episode. Like how they made it didn't have to get made if they would have done an actual prequel, like an actual Natasha Romanoff prequel, or
Mm-hmm.
bare minimum a movie just set before Iron Man 2 when she gets introduced, or just after Iron Man 2.
I think just after, after Iron Man 2,
Yeah.
I think would have been perfect.
Yeah.
Like even remember in Winter Soldier when she and I think it was Winter Soldier, where they have those flashback scenes of her in the Red Room.
The Red Room. That's
right?
that's Age of Ultron, because it's when it's Wanda that does the.
You're right.
Yeah.
You're right. Yes. So to me, when I thought this movie was coming out, I thought that was gonna call back to what we saw in that.
Yeah, like the ballet and everything. They don't show
Yeah,
any of that
that
ballet scene or anything. Yeah.
That was so cool. I thought that was awesome.
Mhm.
You know, I'm like, I want to see this stuff. I want to see this world.
Kind of like in John Wick 2. 2 or
Right.
3. Yeah, 2. Yeah,
Yeah.
with the ballet. Yeah, with the
ballet.
Russians and ballet, and yeah, it would have tied in.
It was so cool.
Because
right?
John Wick is such a secret society similar to the Red Room. Like,
That's right.
yeah.
Yes, exactly. So it's like they could have totally done a John Wick-esque film with Black Widow, and had they introduced that film earlier, like I agree with you, man. If they put out that film somewhere around Iron Man 2 or Avengers, it would have been amazing.
I just need to. I think you and I need to write a Marvel movie together. You can have your writing expertise, and I'll just kind of throw ideas at you.
There we go. So if Kevin Feige's listening,
Yeah.
we're available.
Yeah.
Yep.
Oh my god. Okay, we've been going on for a long time now. This is probably one of the longest episodes I've been going. So even though you and I, we can continue talking. I don't mind if you're not. I'm gonna. I think let's get a couple. Let's see, 2 or 3 more final thoughts of Black Widow, and then we'll call it from there for the recording at least. Okay.
Sounds good.
Okay. So again, let's narrow it down. Let's go too good, too bad.
Too good. I think the new characters that they've introduced, both Yelena, Red Guardian, were I think the standouts for me. I thought that was great. I think overall the movie itself was solid enough. You know, it had the big set pieces, it had the stunt work. Scarlett Johansson, to me, I thought she did a great job, like she usually does. I don't really have anything negative to say about her performance.
Mm-hmm.
My negatives are more just on the storytelling side of things, which we've covered to death now, and I think the timing of this film in general, I think, was just poor. It could have been a lot better. Had it been released 5 years ago, I think it would have made a much bigger splash than it did. As it stands, I think it's just a filler film right now, where it's like bridging, people from wanting to see some Marvel property until the next Doctor Strange film comes out, which will really sort of make people happy.
Cement everything in.
I know Eternals are coming and Shang-Chi is coming, but those are brand new properties, and people don't really know what to expect yet. I think the next one people are really looking forward to, in my opinion, is Spider-Man.
Spider-Man 3,
Spider-Man 3 or Doctor Strange, right? Either of those, whichever one drops first.
Both of them are
really...
Yeah, both of them are basically tied into the same thing, multiverse nonsense, and yeah.
Right, and those are the ones people are really looking forward to, because they're properties we know, we love, the characters already. Hopefully these new ones do well, and they present us with some characters that we grow to love as well. So, with the transition from the original crew, which is now sort of being phased out, it'll be interesting to see moving forward who the audience really starts to latch onto as the next core group.
Yeah, and they do still have some like Guardians, for example. The sense they are, I think Guardians are going to be more of a focus compared to like Iron Man and Tony Stark, where they're going to have that connection of people that we already know, plus branching into the new characters a little bit. That they're probably going to be like the connection, especially since Thor: Love and Thunder is coming out, and then Guardians 3. Like those are going to be the ones that tie it together to the old and then the new.
I think so. Exactly right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Alrighty then. Any last thoughts on anything that you're working on, or anything you want to do a little bit of a shout out again?
You know what? I touched on it at the beginning. Yeah, I'm good. I'm good, man.
Alrighty
Things are
then.
great. Yeah, hopefully we see some people listening at the Saints and Sinners party, as we call it, the Boneyard Racers premiere
You'll see
here in
me for
Edmonton.
sure.
And yeah, absolutely, I'm looking forward to it, man. It'll
Yeah,
be great.
I got I commented on your post and you sent me a gift like you always do.
It's what I do. Yeah.
Alrighty then. Yeah, if you want to continue talking afterwards, I think we can. But I will end it here for the podcast. Thank you everyone for listening. Like I said before, Neil is one of my favorite people to talk to because we get to
Aw, thank
into
you.
deep conversations about Marvel and I'm a Marvel nerd through and through. Again, not as much reading the books like you do, but still always fun.
It's all good, man. It's all good.
That's it for the M3 podcast. Make sure to listen to on Apple, Spotify, Google Play, anything where it's available. We'll be available with the video on YouTube. I will have Neil's information in the description below. Check out his book and his films that he's working on. Are you actually one more question before I kind of cut it? Are you releasing any of the films on like DVD or anything once they come into out of the film circuit or? Is there a way that people
Um,
can watch it with that's not on? Because not many people go to film circuits, unfortunately.
Yes, I know, I know. So while it's doing the film festival circuit, we haven't made Boneyard Racers public. But once we wrap everything up, some of the last ones we're waiting to hear on. I think all if everything goes well, they will show. I think in October, end of October, like around Halloween, and we're sort of aiming for like November, December, making it kind of public release. Um, but we're also working on potential distribution for it. I mean, it's just a short film, but there's some opportunities that have come our way because of the run that it's had. So we're sort of debating what exactly to do with it and what format to release it on. So I'll keep you posted.
Alrighty then. Well,
Yeah.
sounds good. When we get more information, we'll let everyone know. But we'll have if you want to follow Neil, I'll have his information linked below as well. But thank you again for listening to the podcast, everyone, and we will talk to you again.